Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. We're here with candidates from District 3, which incorporates the areas of southwestern Colorado Springs, just north of Fort Carson. The Independent Center is passionate about civic engagement, and we recognize that City Council directly impacts the daily lives of our community members in many ways, including transportation, housing, and infrastructure. These issues are important not only to the disability community, which makes up nearly 20% of the population, but also to those community members who work with, live with, care for, and know individuals within the disability community. The disability community is the largest minority community that anyone at any time can join. For this reason, we are committed to engaging our City Council candidates in active discussions around topics that impact the disability community now and in years to come. We will begin by allowing each of the candidates to briefly introduce themselves, and then we'll move into the question and answer segment and close with any final comments from the candidates. We ask, in the interest of time, that the introductions be limited to 90 seconds and that the responses from the questions be limited to 90 seconds. We will have an alert at 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and then when time is ended. The questions will be asked in no particular order and everything will be randomly selected. All of the candidates were asked to join us, and we are honored by these two candidates joining us this morning. So with that, I will start us off by you, Mrs. Lupia.
Well, I just want to say thank you guys so much for the opportunity to just have this discussion. It has been absolutely wonderful to just get to engage with all the different sects of the community to really just build and strengthen relationships that have, may have been there or have come to fruition because of this. So it is my honor and my privilege to be here with you guys. I've been a resident of Colorado Springs for 21 of my 25 years of life. So not quite a native, but pretty darn close, which has been absolutely phenomenal for me to grow up as the city has grown has been a really exciting journey. I will say, I was in a near fatal car accident when I was 12, which left me with traumatic brain injury, which I had to deal with for about 10 years of my life. So while I obviously can't necessarily empathize with every situation regarding this community, I do have a very deep-seated compassion and realistic understanding of some of the challenges that you guys face. So again, I just wanted to say thank you for letting me hear your voices and just for taking the time to hear what I have to say about how I might be able to serve you best.
And then I guess okay, I'm next, and I'm Richard Scorman, and I have been in Colorado Springs for 50 years, and I came here in 1970 and opened up a business in 1974, my first bookstore, and I've been on Tejon Street as a business owner since. I co-own my businesses with my wife Patricia. She does all the retail and I do the restaurant sides of the business, and we've been going through some struggles with COVID for sure, but we're hanging in there. And I've also been elected to City Council. This will be my fourth election for City Council. I had 2 terms that I did from 99 to 2006, and then I left and came back in 17, and now I'm going to be running one more time. Not able to run after that, and at 68 I probably should hang it up after that. But I do really care about the community. I care about your community, and that's something that I would want to try to know how I can help more, or if I've helped enough, based on my service in the past. And so I have certain issues and things that I've been involved with, but want to hear the questions and then see if I can answer them well and get to know what issues are important to you.
Thank you so much for those introductions. So with that, we will start off on the question and answer segment of our conversation. And we're going to probably talk about Colorado Springs specifically and our long history of disability civil rights advocacy, including the creation of Title II ADA rights. The Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law by Republican George Walker Bush in 1990. After 30 years, the question is, how would you address the barriers that exist for individuals with disabilities in Colorado Springs, given resistance to change from some community members? And Councilman Skorman, we'll let you start us off.
I think we have been making more strides in doing better, but we still have a long ways to go. We built so much of the city without thinking about that. And I was part of the problem before in the old council, but we're really making a much bigger effort these days. And certainly with our 2C money, we're looking at a lot of different curb infrastructure that would help, I think, help the people that don't have the ability to move around. And we've been talking about quite a bit with transit, but I think we can do much better. And so that's why one reason I want to run again is I think that, if we can keep working on some of these issues and be more diligent, that it would be better to have, because our community has so many people that really do struggle with our built infrastructure. And then also with public transportation.
Thank you so much. Mrs. Lupia?
I think it's obviously a pressing question, and it's something good to keep in mind because we aren't always aware. If you're not a part of this specific community, it's not always at the forefront of your mind. So I'm very glad that we are making strides to bring awareness, and that we are making those strides to make our city more accessible and available to this community. I think, we need to continue to make sure that the 2C funds are allocated properly and given to the communities that need them the most. So for example, my neighborhood, I live on the side of Cheyenne Mountain, and, they're doing a lot of the reconstruction of the curbs and putting in the curb cuts up here and redoing the sidewalks, which is great. However, we don't necessarily have a very large population of those with disabilities who would need to utilize those curbs and those sidewalks. So can we make sure that the council is, overseeing and allocating the funds so that we get those curbs and those sidewalk cuts built to where you guys need them the most, which comes from input from your community saying, hey, this neighborhood, we're really having struggles, or, in this part of town, this is where we really need to get things done. So we can make sure that we are expeditiously and effectively using those funds to better service you guys. And sort of the same thing with transportation, making sure that our transportation is going where you guys need it at the times you need it, not it shouldn't take 2 buses in an hour to go 2 miles, which is an experience that one of my neighbors who is, he's physically whole, but he has some developmental challenges. And for him to get to work, it takes 2 buses and almost an hour when it takes less than 10 minutes to get into a car. So just keeping in mind those things and really making sure that we're making progress on those aspects where you guys need it and where your voices are heard and met.
The next question would be, what solutions do you propose to solve the needs of people who are transit dependent so that they can have access to all areas of the city? And Ms. Lupia, we'll start with you.
Well, how fun for me. I just get to continue my train of thought. That's very awesome. Yes, specifically with transportation, one of the things that I'm very passionate about is making sure that our transit is accessible and effective for all different areas of the community. And not just, necessarily the disability community, but for the general population, especially because a lot of our bus stops, for example, have no sidewalks attached to them. They're just in the middle of kind of these dirt areas right off of the side of major roads. So making sure that we can safely, help our citizens travel all over the city. So, I mean, just even looking at the actual infrastructure and mechanics that are going on and what changes we need to make. So, you know, no one should have to risk their life crossing Powers or Nevada to try and get to the bus stop, let alone anyone who is, you know, in any way struggling with that in additional factors. So it's definitely important that we reevaluate, especially because I know firsthand that the disability community is more transit dependent than a lot of the rest of the citizens of our community. So again, it's about listening, being a voice for this community, saying, what do you guys need? And then coming and saying, okay, how or if can the city council specifically address these concerns, these issues, these specific neighborhoods or communities? And what does that look like? Because I don't necessarily believe that the transit has to look exactly the same across the entire city, because we fully own our own transit system. So we have a lot more flexibility in that area than perhaps other cities might. And it's something that I believe we should really take advantage of.
Thank you, Councilman.
Yeah, and I'll jump in now. I appreciate what you've said, Olivia, and I want to add a few things. I think that the hard part about our city with public transportation is that we just don't have the population concentration to really make the fixed route big bus system be effective in terms of providing the transportation that people who are dependent on it need. And we don't have enough riders of choice to fund it to be able to have many more stops and a lot more infrastructure in place, because people can drive places and get there quicker, like Olivia mentioned with her friend. And I like what they've done in Portland, where they've created a system of jitneys. They have van service instead of bus service. They work with Uber and Lyft, but they take people door to door. And certainly our paratransit system does that well, but again, there's a lot of restrictions. I know it doesn't always come on time. You have to decide, you know, the day before when you want to get on a paratransit system. And then we also have been discussing at council that when we have express routes, the paratransit system isn't available, and we would like to at least change that. We have some new express routes to the northern hospitals, and I think that all that's going to be important for us to really look at as we move into the future. If we're going to keep investing in what we have right now, these large fixed route buses that are a hub and spoke that have to go to downtown before you can transfer to another place, it's just going to keep being a system that doesn't work for you and for many other people that are rider dependent.
Thank you so much. The final question is, what is the role of the city in making housing and public spaces more accessible for people with disabilities? Councilman Scorman?
Well, yeah, we certainly have, a fair amount of rules in place. Again, though, I think it would be good to hear from you and people in the community who, see that there may be problems. But, we try to make our buildings accessible in all kinds of ways. We have new rules. There's certainly ADA requirements that come forward. I know as a business owner, my wife and I, we didn't realize that we had some impediments in our businesses. And so we had people come in and ask us to change it, and we got some advice. But there's a lot of communication that needs to happen between you and us to understand. We are redoing our building and zoning codes as we speak. It's called Retool COS, and they need to be updated for all kinds of reasons. But you should be at the table. And I hope that the Independent Center is, or representatives from, to make sure that that we are doing everything that we can. We have many people here, like every other community, but we have more people with disabilities because of we've had so many deployments from Fort Carson for the Iraq and Afghani wars, and lots of people have come back to live in Colorado Springs, and we have a particular responsibility to help our vets who are disabled as well as you. And that's something that I feel really strongly about.
Mrs. Lupia?
That's a fantastic question, and something that absolutely, should continue to be addressed. I think there are a lot of options that are being passed around on the table, but again, goes back to listening to you guys, your community voice, what is going to best serve your community, and what is going to be most effective. It's great to say we're going to make all these changes and implement all these things, but if they're not really effective changes, then they don't serve you guys the best we can. So definitely making sure that the changes that are in place are what's going to benefit the most for your community, and be of the most help long term, so that we're not having to go back and constantly change things as we're saying, hey, this isn't working, or whoops, we shouldn't have done this in the first place. Not that changes aren't going to be necessary, not that changes aren't going to be made down the line, but what can we do to make it a smooth transition as possible? And that continues with the housing as well. One of the ideas that I have put forward to kind of address accessible housing is taking old apartment complexes and refurbishing them and kind of giving them a facelift and kind of taking them from the ground up and turning them into brand new communities that have had a lot of community input. So maybe specifically addressing, with your community, having that conversation and that dialogue to say, what would an ideal, kind of multi-unit housing facility look like for you guys? And then seeing how we can do that, taking existing infrastructure and converting it to something that is along good metro lines, or other transportation, and also is helpful and equipped to best serve you guys as a housing facility. So those kinds of things, I think, are things we can keep in mind, and things that we definitely can continue to explore, that we have a lot of awesome options out there. So, keeping our minds open, keeping our perspectives fresh, and saying, hey, let's think outside the box so that we can, meet these needs in ways that maybe we didn't think we could before.
Thank you so much. All right, well, those were all of our questions for today. We're going to use the remainder of our time to allow you to kind of give any final thoughts or final comments that you'd like to share. Councilman Skorman, we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, thank you for making this happen. I've run now, this is my 5th election, actually, because I ran for mayor and lost. And this is the first time that the Independent Center has reached out. So I'm really happy that you're getting involved. And I hope that if I don't get elected, that it's a good council for you, and having the ability to ask these questions and to be able to let the everybody else know, because it could be a turnover of 6 council members, that you're really an important part of the community, and that we should care, and that we need to have you be proactive and come to council and let us know what we're doing right and what we can do better. So thank you for this great opportunity. And Olivia, thank you for being willing to stick your neck out there, by the way. And Ron, I always tell people that if you we're going to vote, I want you to vote for me first, but my opponent, you should vote for if I am not your first choice, because she seems like she's really going to be a good public servant someday, maybe next month. We'll see.
Thank you. Mrs. Lupia?
Well, again, thank you so much for the opportunity, for including me in hearing your voice, and for letting us know what's important to you. This is your home just as much as it is anyone else's, and this is your city to love and to see changes just as much as every other citizen that lives here. So we have such a wonderful, diverse community here in Colorado Springs that is constantly changing and reshaping. And I think it's wonderful that I have had the opportunity to just really get to listen to all of these different groups, to all of these different community members. It has been my privilege, absolutely. So I just want to say, thank you guys for taking an interest in your city, for being active and involved, and for just being willing to stand up for what you need and to have a voice. So it's an ongoing discussion that you guys have an equal part in, an equal voice, and I am so excited to see what wonderful ideas that you guys have to bring to the table, that you guys have to communicate, and just the awesome effort that this is going in to make Colorado Springs, continue to make Colorado Springs such a wonderful town to live and work and play. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, those were all of our questions for today. Thank you both for joining us today, and we truly appreciate you taking the time to speak with us and sharing your thoughts and ideas around disability-related issues that impact Colorado Springs community. So we'll be posting these videos on our various social media platforms, and we wish you both the very best. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.